Hey everyone, you're listening to the official podcast of 4PlayerNetwork.com. Check us out at that address for everything you need to know about our community, monthly giveaways, and nightly live streams. You can even support us on Patreon at patreon.com/4Player. And last but not least, you can catch the live recordings of these podcasts every single Thursday night on our Twitch channel. We hope to see you there. Enjoy.
Guys, welcome to 4Player Podcast Weekly Video Game Top 3 Podcast. Today's episode, we're talking about upcoming games and things that we would like to see.
You've ruined this. I am going to let you give it a shot every time we record one of these, though, so thank you for the attempt, Brad. Hey, everyone, welcome to 4Player Plus. This is a bonus podcast. Tonight we are doing our top 3 upcoming games that we're not quite sold on yet. If you don't know what that means, we're going to explain it in just a minute. But first, I want to introduce our panel tonight. Brad Simons.
Yes, what's up?
Nolan Hedstrom.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Crispy.
Hello.
And Chris Davis.
Good evening.
And I don't remember if I said my own name. My name's Nick Henderson, just in case. But hey, everyone, welcome. As I said, we're doing our top 3 upcoming games that we're not quite sold on tonight. We launched this bonus podcast again last month. We're going to try and do one of these a month. We did our top 3 dream projects last time. If you haven't listened to that episode, go check it out. It's on 4playernetwork.com. We had a lot of fun recording that, so we're back here to do another one. And there's a lot to talk about tonight. So I don't think we're going to waste any time jumping into this. Brad's got a hard out at 11, so we got to get this show on the road. To really kind of talk real quick to kind of introduce this topic, I guess, to give you an idea of what to expect. These are the games that we know about, that we've seen, that have been shown in preview events, things like that, that have not quite done enough to sell us on their concept. And I think, Brad, as you were saying in Discord, I think this is a good point. Kind of the crux of this conversation is going to be about our ideas of the quote unquote solution, right? The thing that these games could do, or these projects could do, or announce, or show, that would push us over the edge and make us excited for them. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and other interpretations of that, but more or less, I think that's in the spirit. We'll be in that ballpark, Nick.
Exactly. Like you said, we're all going to kind of interpret these a little bit differently, and I think that's part of the fun of it too. So, I'm trying to figure out who's going to go first tonight.
I'll
Brad?
go first.
All right. Cool.
I'll start with
set the bar. Well,
I'm not going to set the bar because I'm actually going to start with an easy one that I've talked about before. But I'm being truthful. It's important to me. I want people to keep hearing it because I want to keep reiterating myself until it becomes truth. The Advance Wars 1 and 2 remake.
Oh.
So I've talked about this before, actually. I've gone into detail. It's a thing I wanted more than ever for this game. And I think the reason it's worth bringing up again is because obviously it's been delayed because of what's going on in Ukraine. And I imagine, it is way forward. And this game is published by Nintendo. I imagine that Nintendo is footing that bill and still paying these people to work on this game. But you never know. I don't know.
I would imagine,
the point is,
yeah.
They probably have some time to do what I really want them to do. And I don't know if they were already going to do it, but Advance Wars 1 and 2 are games I've played a lot of. They hold up. I have lots of devices that can play Game Boy Advance games really well. I own the games, and they have beautiful sprite work, right? They're real snappy. They're fast. There's literally nothing about old Advance Wars games that don't hold up, especially 1 and 2, right? Because before they got weird with the DS stuff. And for that reason, I've not been I love Advance Wars. I'm glad it's back, but I've not been super, super excited about the fact that the grand return for Advance Wars is a remake of 1 and 2 with an art style that's fine, but let's be honest, the original art style is it's iconic. It's awesome, right? So the thing that I really wanted for this game, I've been begging for, honestly, is this game's going to have multiplayer, right?
Oh, I know what you're
But
gonna say.
what I really, 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 really want them to show that they're doing, implement, is the asynchronous like play by turn, like Words with Friends, right? You know,
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
boot
yeah,
up Words
yeah.
with Friends, you can have a bunch of games going with a bunch of different people at once, and it's turn based, right? You take your turn, you send it over, and you wait for the next person to, whenever they get a poop break or whatever, to take their turn, right? Like this would work so well for Advance Wars, so well, so I can have multiple games going. I could take my turn, which it's a tactics game where you move all your units, and it could take time. So it's perfect for this sort of play by mail or whatever they used to call it, right?
Play by mail.
Well,
I guess that
yeah,
makes sense.
it's like the origin of that this type of multiplayer, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not fast, you don't have to be there. Wargroove did it. Wargroove was an Advance Wars clone, fantasy based, right? But other than it being fantasy based, it was super Advance Wars, right? It's a really fun game, and it had this multiplayer, and it was fucking great because I could have all these games going with all these different people in our community, and it was wonderful, right? Advance Wars, it's a great game. It's got great single player content, but it is also a really well made, well tuned tactical game, and I think multiplayer would thrive if it had this mode. It's gonna
This
have
seems like an
multiplayer,
absolute
but no,
no-brainer, though.
but they
Right?
haven't announced it yet. They haven't shown it yet. All we know is that they're having multiplayer, and what I'm worried is that it's going to just be like two people log in and they do a match until they're done, and then they log off. And
Which
that
good
is
luck finding.
not the, it is not the way to do this type of multiplayer. That it's what I want to see more than anything. I know I've brought it up before, but it's obviously a game that it's a series that means a lot to me, and it sucks that it's a game that I'm not so excited about that I'm like, that I'm going crazy, right?
Bring
It
no
should,
question about this project because
but if I
obviously
saw that mode, I would be like losing it out of happiness
all would
because
be forgiven.
yeah,
Um, this is maybe a dumb question, I guess, but like this game was more or less done. It kind of had a release date, and then they postponed it indefinitely because of what's going on in the Ukraine.
yeah, it's supposed to be out in
And
April.
do you think they're using this extra time to like add new features and shit, or have they
No,
just
well, I
considered
mean
it done and they're moving on?
that's sort of how I opened. I mean, that's the big question, right? I don't know. I mean, if you think about game development, especially game development during COVID, a lot of these companies, I mean, the whole nature of game development is okay. It'll never be perfect. It'll never be completely done. There will always be bugs, shippable bugs or whatever. Let's just get it out because this is how game development works, right? Sometimes, when you get the opportunity to keep working on a project, and way forward, they do a lot. Um, you know, Stuff happens. Shit, they had, I mean, one of the last things they said they were working on was the multiplayer, so it could happen. It could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but, I'm not saying that it wasn't already planned, but we haven't seen it, and that's the point, right? They haven't shown me the thing that I want more than anything, and if I saw that, I'd be so happy.
And
So that's my
I
number
feel
three.
like the general marketing of that game is just kind of taking a back seat right now because it's just one of those
Oh, there's
situations where
no
I kind
more
of feel
marketing. Why would they
it
market that
feels
game? The
it
marketing of
feels
the
weird
game is
marketing it.
just as offensive as the actual game being released, right?
Right.
To insensitive,
Given
I
the
should say.
time
It's
frame
just it's
that
just
we're
as
in.
insensitive. In fact, marketing it would be even more insensitive.
Right. So I don't know. That's yeah. I'm totally with you on that. All
I
right.
I want to ask real quick.
Uh-huh.
So you cited Wargroove with this system. How does Wargroove handle the passage of time? Like, how long does a player have to? How long can they wait before they actually do a move?
Infinite amount of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Infinite
it's
amount of
turn
time.
based.
It's literally just you. Yeah. The game doesn't progress again until the other player
Yeah,
makes
your
makes a
side might
turn.
have like 20 units, right? And when it's your turn, you move all 20 of those units, create new units, whatever, and then you pass that turn, and then it's your opponent's turn. They have as much time as they want. It's like playing chess or something, right? Well, not
Yeah.
I
speed chess, but
I
One of
can
those games
Time
where
freezes.
you have to like text the person to hassle them to take their move.
Yeah, so
that's
that's
yeah,
my
which
thing is that if this game is probably going to have matchmaking for the multiplayer, I can picture this system working for friend matches, not necessarily matchmaking, because there is that scenario to where you will run into players that will intentionally,
They don't.
unintentionally decide not to play, and that just keeps the game going indefinitely.
Oh, well, usually in
there's
games like
things in
this,
place for
there's
that.
communities like message boards and stuff. Like when Wargroove was out, I had multiple games going, not just with people in our Discord, but also like people over on Era and stuff where people were posting,
I'm
you
pretty
know.
sure my turn with my game with Brad and Wargroove has been going on for like 2.5 years now.
Yeah, I probably got a bunch of open games.
Nolan's just waiting for the perfect poop break to
Lock
make
up
his move.
in a deadly
You
game
just
of
wait,
catch
Brad.
and
It's
ulcer
coming. It's coming, Brad. It's going to be the best movie you've ever seen.
when you least suspect.
The best bowel move you've okay. Sorry, you know what? That's a bad joke. All right, Nolan, why
What's
don't
up?
you go next?
Sure. So the first game I guess I'll bring up tonight is Witchbrook.
Ooh,
So we know this is the kind of it's been referred to as like Stardew Valley, but more magical with like witches in school. And so we don't know too much about it. It's still on the horizon, still in development. We know you're going to be a student in a school, like classes and stuff like that.
right.
Um, but my real desire is that the systems and mechanics side of it is going to be akin to like almost Persona, um,
Like
where you
relationship
have
management and stuff.
not even just that. Like Persona, you have like classes you have to attend. You have like potentially after
Mhm.
school activities that maybe you can choose from a range. So maybe you're attending certain magical classes, and every once in a while you have like tests. And
Gotcha.
you can either do good or bad on them, and obviously doing good gives you extra rewards, or after school activities. Like obviously it's going to be a magical thing, so maybe some like after school potions thing that will give you extra either items or something like that you can take off. And I mean, I think it's going to be, I definitely, to my knowledge, no, it's not going to be as structured as Persona. Persona is very like
Rigid.
structured into, yeah, it's very rigid. I think it's going to be obviously less so than that, but I think that you can still have that structure without it being as rigid. Um, and so
That's
that's
my
my
biggest
hope is
complaint with Persona is how rigid it is, how it sticks to like you can only do one thing a day. That like
Mhm.
that kind of thing always annoys me. I wish there was more. I wish you had more control over when that day is considered over, and that you could do more
Mhm.
than however like that small handful of activities in a given day. Also, didn't Three Houses kind of work that way as well
Yeah.
to some extent? Yeah.
Bully was something that was a little more open ended. Like you still had to go to
So,
classes, but
So yeah, that's what I was going to bring up is something like that where there is literally just a timer. It's like you have it's this time during the day you have to attend class. Now it's after class you have this much time to do whatever. So it's one of those things where you could potentially fit in 5, 6, 7 things if they're quick, or maybe just like one or two things if they take longer, or you could just call it quits for the night, or oh, I'm going to go back to my room and go to sleep early or go to study early to learn something, and you'll learn a fact that maybe will help you on the next quiz. But that's my hope is I know it's going to be very magical and fantastical, and I'm looking forward to that. But I really hope that it's kind of like the thing with like Stardew Valley is it's like very very open. I mean, while there is still a timer, you still have X amount of time during the day. It's a similar concept, but it's just like there's so much you can do. There's no real like I have to do this. I have to go to class today. I have to do this. That's like the only thing is like I have to do is if you have something like to turn in, like like some mission or something. That's the only kind of time based thing in that. Otherwise, it's very open. But my curiosity with this as well is it going to be similar to Stardew Valley has like seasons or whatever. You have like winter, fall, whatever. In year 1, year 2 is it going to be like that in this? Are you going to you're going to college? Do you like go for 4 years? Are you getting a master's? Does it go longer? Like what is the end game of this? It would be nice if it was had like an ending thing, but you could keep going. I don't know. Those are just some of the things that I'm not sure
when's the
about
last
yet.
we heard of that game?
Didn't they announce it for Switch recently, or I guess it was always.
I
announced
feel
for
like it did
Switch?
pop up recently. Yeah.
It popped up that essentially saying like, "Hey, it's still in the works and stuff like that." But I don't really think they added too much more. It's still like pretty unknown to my knowledge.
Something
At least.
happened recently because I specifically added it to my Steam wish list recently because of something that they put out about the game and it wasn't already on my wish list.
Also,
But,
just
I don't
so we're
recall.
clear with everyone that's listening, Witchbrook is being developed by Chucklefish. Stardew Valley was actually done by Concerned Ape.
Correct.
So,
Yeah, he's
Oh.
already working on another game. He's
Yeah.
working on the Haunted
The-
Chocolatier.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! So this is
Chucklefish just
published.
published Stardew Valley. They didn't develop it. They're actually developing this one.
Ah, I
Yeah,
completely
ve-
forgot that
very,
that was a different
very
studio.
different. They technically have like nothing to do with each other. Yeah.
Chucklefish actually developed Wargroove.
Yes.
Oh wow. All right. Well, let's keep the connection going. Crispy, do you have a choice that could? No, I'm just kidding. What's your number 3?
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, we're playing 6 Degrees of Wargroove here.
No. What? No. What?
We're just
Wargroove was stupid.
Hey,
No, it was fine.
It
I
had a
liked
dog
Wargroove.
commander, and
It
we
was
lost
fine.
Brad. Okay, there he is.
It was fine. I liked it. Uh, no, my first pick is probably going to be no surprise to anybody because we've
there. It
already
is.
talked at length about it multiple times. Um, Obviously, I am not yet sold on Starfield.
Yeah, there it is.
it's not your number one.
It's not my number one.
He,
No,
he wanted to get
I
it. He
just want
wanted
to
to
get
get
it
it
out
out
of the
the
way.
gate before somebody stole it.
No, I just want to get it out of the way because I don't think there's as much of an interesting conversation there. Partly because we've already talked about it, and partly because the stuff that I would say I want to see in order to be sold on it, they've already confirmed isn't in the game. So it's like,
Wait,
oh,
like
okay. I wonder,
what's
like,
not in there, Crispy?
oh,
That you want?
Planet to space flight.
planets.
We
Planets that you can fly to and land on anywhere. I don't fucking
Gotcha.
care what Todd Howard says.
Exploring dark space.
Also,
Yeah, I mean,
we did talk
yeah.
about the dog fighting on the I think it was the last episode. We talked about, how the way they've kind of pitched it so far, it makes it sound like dog fighting, no matter how cool it is going to kind of exist in this like ether between space exploration and planet exploration, just kind of in this, which I think
And
kind
I
of
don't
takes sucks
I
some of the
don't even
magic out of
know
it.
what is space exploration then. Like what do they think space exploration is beyond like am I flying around in my ship and just like scanning stuff every once in a while?
Like you're
Because
not going to get that Outer Wilds
yeah,
feel of
because
like
been
taking
there,
off
I
done
and
was
that.
flying.
No.
No,
Which
I was
no.
gonna say you could have something
Which,
similar to like shit. What was that? Oh my god, that space game that you and I played quite a decent amount of, Crispy.
Rebel
That was it.
Galaxy?
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, Rebel
Rebels
Galaxy.
Galaxy. That
You
like yeah,
know,
you're exploring space and you can come across like an asteroid field and you can mine things or you can come across
it's
like random bandits or rescue someone.
it's so weird like to think about like I think a lot of developers try to do space and they get to this point where there's like, well, obviously he's going to fly around and shoot lasers and missiles. That's what spaceships do. But
Of
like
course.
what else can they do? Like it's not like we're just going to let you hop out of your ship in the middle of space and fly around and, do whatever. Not a lot of games do that. Outer Wilds does that, and it's amazing because of just how fucking quickly you can like get separated from your ship or like things can go wrong and how like disorienting like 0G gravity like really is. Um but a lot of games
Man, that
don't
game is so
opt to
good.
go. Yeah, a lot of games don't opt to go that route because it's like it's messy. It's probably resource intensive. So it's like, what else can they do? And what a lot of them end up doing is something like, oh well, I don't know, scanning. Like we'll have you scan things. Like, and half the time it's just like, here's an object, fly up to it, hit the button that pops up. This is scan, and then like we'll give you data, or we'll give you some kind of currency, or we'll give you items or something. And it's just like, okay, cool, whatever. The only game that I've played, and feel free to sound off if you've played one that you think is just as cool. But the only game I've played that really had like a cool scientific like scanning and like you were doing something and it felt like you were operating equipment on a spaceship to gain useful knowledge, was Eve Online. And in Eve
Mm.
Online, you can do I mean I haven't played in years, and I don't follow that game because it scares the fuck out of me. But like it used to be like if you were gonna scan something, you would have a supply of scanner drones on your ship. You'd have to launch them out, and you're like in a control panel setting like the pattern of how you want these drones to like surround whatever it is you're scanning, and like you actually had to like work in three-dimensional space to set up like optimal scan patterns to like get good coverage on the area that you're trying to explore. And like it was just really cool. Like it was a lot of fun, and it was something you actually had to think about and learn how to use. And it like it was maybe a step beyond the level of technical knowledge that anybody really wants to invest in what is essentially going to be a tiny little subsystem in a game to fulfill like a general spaceflight power fantasy. You know what I'm saying? It's just
Yeah,
weird.
absolutely.
I like that's the kind of depth that would make me excited. You know, what would make me excited for Starfield is like the knowledge, the certainty that the space side of stuff is going to be fleshed out, interesting,
Right.
and not just like glorified dogfights, not just like a slightly more technically complicated version of gummy ships from the original Kingdom Hearts, you know?
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to customize my starship, but I also want that to be like the point. You know, I want that to be a big part of the game. I don't want it just to be like, you know, the first 20 hours I spend with this game, I'm going to spend a lot of time in the Starship editor. I'm going to make the ship that I really like. And then it's like, okay, that's what I'm using for the next 100 hours. And it doesn't really matter because it's just the ship I see in cutscenes. And occasionally I do the little dogfight minigame with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm looking for. I want something a little, you know, a
Yeah.
little,
Little,
a little,
little extra oomph.
like
Oh,
I
that
just
was.
want
Oh,
some
okay.
fucking, I just want some fucking girth on it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I don't know. Because like at this point, it feels like people who are really excited about that game are just saying that's unreasonable, and it's like okay,
Yeah.
then I guess it's unreasonable. Sure.
I think
I-
Nolan has a question about
yeah.
Advance Wars. He's been holding his hand up for a while.
Sorry, I'm not looking at the screen. What's
Ah,
up, Nolan?
No one's had his hand up for like
Motherfucker.
5 minutes or more.
What?
Oh
Thanks,
shit! Go ahead,
Crispy.
Nolan.
Um, what I wanted to talk about is elaborating on that, Crispy, exactly what you were talking about. It would be great if they had something like you mentioned, you're customizing your ship. What's the point of it? You know, what's the point of doing this? The point of having crew. If they implemented FTL like random encounters. So,
Yeah.
oh, you know, you encounter a ship that's on fire. Oh, well, my ship has some sort of suppressing thing on it, or I have a crew member that has some knowledge of something, or oh, hey, I can dock with this ship because they've hailed me. There's a risk that they're gonna shoot a bunch of guys on board and start blasting up my ship.
Right. You have
Or you know,
interesting decisions to make. You
like
know,
oh
because
my
of
ship can tow theirs. Maybe
right
they're out of fuel and I can tow them. You know,
because
stuff
of
like
the
that.
yeah. If you have a greater mechanical complexity to the starship end of things, then that just begets more interesting gameplay because you have interesting decisions to make. Where it's like, I need to get to this planet, but I don't have enough fuel to get there, and I don't want to get stuck in the middle of dark space without
Mhm.
any fuel because then what the fuck am I gonna do? You know?
Yeah.
Like I or yeah, like I'm carrying a bunch of cargo and this guy needs cargo and I can give him some or I can finish him off and take what he's got or you know, I can use my tractor like that is I don't know.
fortunately, we have a
Maybe I'm
product
a little
for
pie in the sky.
someone like you, Crispy, and it's called Star Citizen.
I
Yeah.
mean, you're not wrong, Brad. That has a
Uh,
lot of that.
Listen,
you know,
listen. I paid $70 for a Star Citizen spaceship like 10 years ago. And I don't even know if it's a game yet. Is it a game? Like, is
nope.
that a thing people
Yeah,
play?
and I mean, you can download it now, and you can play it, and you can take missions, and you can go to planets, and you can, yeah, it's there. I
I know,
mean,
and people say that, and people post gameplay videos, and every time I see it, I'm like, you're fucking lying. Like,
Star Citizen ships were the first NFTs.
Oh my
dude,
god.
you're not
dude,
wrong.
you're not joking. People were
Oh my
like, I'll pay
god.
$150 for a starship in a video game. Yeah, right. You know, like,
That is that is fabulous. Okay,
I'm pretty sure they have ships that are like at like $1,000 now.
I
you know,
mean,
I just want to squeeze this in because talking about Starfield and talking about hearing Todd Howard's like grandiose promises and like just Bethesda's general approach to these kinds of games, and they always go with like bigger is better. As it seems like this promise of like thousands of planets, whatever. I would take Bethesda's. I would take a Starfield in which Bethesda took inspiration from Outer Wilds. It's like 2 or 3 systems that are about the same size as Outer Wilds that are
Yeah.
completely freely explorable, but with Bethesda's kind of like approach to like planet side exploration on them.
But we
being
know
able
it's
to kind
not
of
that.
move.
We know it's
I know
not
we
that.
know. I know we know it's not that. But like I would take that any day over this
Of
huge
course, yeah.
promise that
Okay.
they've made that they're probably
but
going to
that's what I'm
deliver on.
saying is like we know we're not getting the like seamless space to planet traversal. Like this stuff doesn't all exist in a single space, quote unquote, right?
Right.
All right, fine. I've made my peace with that, but I want to see how deep the space stuff goes. If you feel like you need to keep it separate, like if that's the way you're building the game, okay,
Better
prove to me
justify
that
it.
prove to me this isn't an afterthought. Like prove to me
Right.
that this matters just as much as what I'm doing on the ground when I'm talking to NPCs and stuff. I just don't think they've done that yet. And I want to see positive reviews from this game that don't say things like it's Skyrim in space. Because
Well, come on.
I don't want that. That's not what I'm interested in.
I do think people are a little mean to Todd Howard. Everyone's acting like he's some
I think
Peter
Todd Howard
Molyneux.
fucking deserves it.
No, he's people talk about him like he's some Peter Molyneux level huckster or something. He was pretty. It was a pretty humble pitch. I got to be honest with you.
Okay.
He was not out there like, promising us dreams. He just wasn't. He made it sound kind of like Skyrim in space. In fact, that's even one of the first things he said about Starfield.
He did say that. But he also kind of made it sound like No Man's Sky.
You're gonna plant a
It's
seed
not.
on a planet somewhere, and then come back, and a whole life will have grown.
And then you get
These
to
people-
fuck it.
And you know what? It just works.
I
right.
don't think Todd Howard is all that chill.
I do think Starfield, of all the games we're going to talk about tonight, I think Starfield is maybe the biggest question mark. So I'm glad we included it here. All right. Real quick before I pass it on to Chris Davis, I meant to say this at the beginning of the show, but I lost sight of my notes here, and I want to make sure I mention this at the top of all these episodes, because we do look to the community in Discord to help us come up with ideas for these top 3 topics if you support us on Patreon or Twitch. And I want to make sure I give a shout out to Mr. Scorpion, who was the one who kind of planted the seed of this idea. We kind of took it and we took the idea and extrapolated it out into like the best fit for the show, for the format. But Mr. Scorpion was the one who kind of came up with the original foundation for this idea, for this topic. So shout out to you, Mr. Scorpion. Cheers. And with that, Chris Davis, what's your first pick?
You're muted.
You're muted.
What the hell? Why was I muted?
There we-
Okay. Mine is a weird one, and I guarantee none of y'all have it on your list, so you're good. This is a pick for a game that I've considered a bit of a mid-tier jewel over the past several years that I've tried to convince
Spit it out,
this
Chris
game's
Davis.
predecessor for Nick to play, which he hasn't, which is sad.
Oh,
So
wait, no, I don't know what this is.
Payday?
no, this is not Payday.
Chris Davis.
Teon is I believe a Polish developer. Yeah.
Hard out at 11.
He still hasn't said the name of the game. He said the name of
Hard
the
out at 11. We're
And-
on number 1.
And 3 years ago, they put out a game called Terminator Resistance, which is probably the best Terminator game ever made. That's not saying much, but for what they did, they executed it as best as they could on a budget. And I
James,
was
what is this game?
supremely impressed.
killing
So
me.
last year, they announced that they are working on another licensed game. They are working on a RoboCop game. It's called RoboCop Rogue City.
Definitely
and
on
Shooting
anyone's list.
simulator.
it very, very little has been revealed about this game. There has been a single concept teaser trailer, and if you go on Steam, there's nothing but concept art. Nothing else is talked about with this game. But the fact
But
that
you're not
it's
sold on
Teon, I'm not sold on it for a number of reasons. Firstly, this is the second first-person shooter they've ever done. Their previous works were mostly rail shooters. I don't know if you've ever heard of the series called Under Fire or Heavy Fire. It was on the PS3 and Wii. Basically, it was a on rails gun shooter. But they're making a RoboCop game. They've announced, and if they can put the level of effort that they put into Terminator Resistance in there, I think there's potential for a good game. The problem I have with it is if you're gonna do a game about RoboCop or about the police, number one, we live in a time in which media about police is almost never positive, and it's generally frowned upon. But
Okay.
there have been good police games. I mainly point to LA Noire, for example.
That's even debatable, depending on who you ask.
That's
but
even
I get
debatable.
your point.
Yeah.
I get your point. Yes.
Not all police games are bad. I get what you're saying, Chris.
Yeah, there is potential for a good game here. But what I'm concerned about is that their only first person shooter that they've made is Terminator. And Terminator is a game about popping up out of cover and shooting static targets that are either just walking at you without any concern about themselves or just standing in place and just shooting at you. Because they're robots. It's what they do. In a game in which you have human opponents and you're a cop, I mean, granted, this is a Paul Verhoeven, original franchise, which is all about over-the-top gratuitous violence. You're probably going to be shooting a lot of punks.
Satire.
Punk.
So, do you say punks?
I mean, yeah.
The only RoboCop thing I have ever actually seen is the
Scene
dick shooting
27?
video. Scene 27.
You really should see the original RoboCop make. It is a
Wait.
fun
You've not
movie.
seen- Literally, one scene is all you've seen of any RoboCop.
Not just one
It
scene, but
wasn't even the scene from the movie.
the recreated scene with on YouTube
Yeah,
with him
yeah.
shooting all the
Our
dicks.
RoboCop
that
movie,
is-
yeah.
Yeah, that is the only thing that I've seen.
You
That was a
should-
great scene, though.
What if you don't shoot punks? You just shoot, Ed 209 and other cool robots. and
That
stuff.
would be
What if-
boring. That
Well,
would
you know.
against.
I think that would
No.
be really uninteresting for what they could really do with this IP. I would hope that this is going to sound
So
really
you
weird.
want to shoot punks, is what you're saying.
I kind of want RoboCop to be kind of like a detective game where you are going out and you are solving crimes and detecting shit while you are killing a ton of like criminals and stuff.
No way.
Pretty sure you're a judge, you're an
RoboCop?
executioner, so you shouldn't be killing them. You should be
You know what?
arresting them so they can do justice.
You
You are a
Robo
cop. You're supposed
investigator?
to uphold the law. Like
I
Yeah,
appreciate. You know
not
what?
to shoot people, Chris Davis.
I mean,
100%.
like RoboCop
No.
is satire based on satire. Like, I don't know.
Okay,
I
so-
don't
someone-
think
here's a
think
question.
treating it as like a
Here's an honest to God-
straightforward, honest endorsement of the American justice system is.
Okay. I have an honest to God question here because I don't know anything about. I'm going to assume that RoboCop as it existed in the 80s would not do very well today. Given the times that we
They
live in, right?
remade it.
yeah,
Depends
they-
on the
They did
audience.
remake it.
But I guess it does depend on the audience. But like, is RoboCop the kind of thing that could ever be like modernized, where like
Dude,
he is
that's
taking on
They
what if he is fighting corrupt police? Police? Is that a thing that RoboCop would ever do? Or is
RoboCop
that,
is
that
the
was the
hero
plot
we
of one of the
need.
films and part of the TV show. By the way, there was a fucking TV show.
oh well, then
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
I don't know,
that's what I'm
man.
saying.
Like anything,
You
like
can do
you
a lot
know
of
that
things
you
with it.
know RoboCop was originally supposed to be a Judge Dredd movie.
Yes.
Oh, I did not
Yeah.
know that.
Okay, so you gotta look at what Judge Dredd has done with that character, and a lot of that is very critical. We don't have to get into this.
Yeah,
this
we
is,
don't-
this
Yeah,
is
we don't.
weird, and I just don't like it.
All right. Well, RoboCop. What is that game called, Chris Davis?
It's RoboCop Rogue City.
All right. Interesting. Bold choice. Bold choice. All right. My first game that I'm going to pick tonight is going to be. I'm going to go with Gotham Knights. I think Gotham Knights.
Is a
I'm
lost
sorry,
cause.
Chris Davis. You took Starfield. I'm taking Gotham Knights. I think this game has a bit of a marketing problem.
Come into my house.
I'm sorry. And to be clear, I am who I am. While I'm not quote unquote sold on most of these games, like there's no world in which I'm not going to play or try Gotham Knights. You know what I mean? But like, I'm not sold on the concept that they came up with sounds intriguing. This idea that Batman is dead, so you have these four people who worked with Batman coming together to kind of fill that void in Gotham City. Sounds great. Sounds exciting. But what they've been showing so far has been like they've shown like what feels like 100 trailers for this game at this point, or like gameplay demonstrations, and it's always like one of these characters fighting street level thugs and showing none of the like grander like mission types you're gonna be doing. Like I still don't have a feel for like what the city feels like at its at the street level. I don't know what, because it's about the Court of Owls too, which is like at this point has become kind of this like icon, like this new age iconic Batman villain, right? So like everybody's excited about the Court of Owls, but like they still haven't shown much of anything about them. And based on what they've shown and the way they've kind of chosen to highlight all of these characters, I feel like this game is shaping up. Like I'm worried that regardless of which character you choose, it's going to kind of play the same. And for me, I want them to lean more into kind of like the RPG choices. I want the character that you choose to have an actual impact on the way missions play out, the way you approach certain missions. They talk about costumes a lot, and I'm like, I want the costumes to be more than just pick the one that looks the coolest. I want them all to have like function, potentially, like ways to change gameplay, even if it's like small changes. Like
Plus
I want
5% stamina.
Okay, maybe not that small. You know what I mean? But like something noticeable that can be visibly seen in gameplay. I'm at this point I'm just worried that those are going to be purely decorative choices, cosmetic choices, and I would be really bummed if that's the case. I'm also a little worried because of their history with like Batman Arkham Origins, and albeit Batman Arkham Origins is not the only Batman Arkham game that had this problem, but like honestly, I think Arkham Knight might be the only game in which I feel like Gotham City feels like a living, breathing place. And even that is maybe stretching it a little far. I'm worried that this is gonna be another game where like the streets of Gotham just feel kind of empty and void of life. And I don't know. I think if they want, especially with the Court of Owls and what the Court of Owls represents, I feel like the city has to be more alive, because Court of Owls is like, aren't they like woven into like the history of Gotham as a city and as a place?
Oh, I don't know, Nick. You're the expert.
You bitch. I'm looking to you, Crispy. I'm looking for you to like confirm my suspicions here. I don't know nearly as much about Court of Owls as you do, but like it seems like if they want that to land,
yes,
a lot of emphasis needs
that's
to be
the whole idea is that there's this evil foundational institution in the city that Batman thought he was the master of, that has been plotting against him his entire life, and he didn't know that they existed. One time he tried to investigate their existence after his parents died, before he became Batman, and he failed to turn up any evidence of their existence until.
See, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
See, it's cool. It's like woven into like Gotham as a place, and I need them to prove to me that like this is more than just like a backdrop, more than a playground for you to just jump around and fight bad guys. Because right now, everything that they've shown is just playing as one of these four characters, flying around with these weird traversal mechanics and beating up punks. And I want it to be more than that, but I don't know. I'm just not convinced yet.
Is this on your list, Crispy?
Yeah, this was going to be my.
Do you want to just transition to your number 2 and elaborate, or do you want to come back to it?
No, I think Nick. It was going to be my next selection. I agree with a lot of what Nick's saying. I think that I'm more interested in this idea conceptually than I am
in practice
from gameplay demonstration. And it's really going to depend just how it feels, because the combat looks really weird and floaty. It looks like
they did release a new trailer for Robin's gameplay today, and I thought it actually looks quite a bit better than. Yeah, I'm still like, there's no world in which I'm not going to be like maining Batgirl, but like Robin, like I'm really thinking about Robin might be a close second option here.
I mean, I think they all look interesting except for Red Hood. I'm not into the.
I think Robin should always come first in your book, Nick. I mean,
that's a nut. That's funny. That's another thing. I want there to be incentives to try all the characters. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna be disappointed if I boot this game up, I start playing as Batgirl, and I never feel any pull
I think there will be.
to switch between the other characters.
There might be.
So I'm hoping that at some point in this game, I'm like, I can't pick because like they're all different and I feel like it's gonna change up the feel of the game dramatically, and I'm hoping that feeling comes. But right now, I'm not super convinced.
I mean, the biggest thing holding me back from being, putting my money down on it is the fact that the city, not only the city, but the entire game feels so lifeless. Like,
That's not like it's
most
always
of the
fighting
common encounters
guns on
only have like
rooftops.
2 or 3 dudes in every single demonstration they've ever done. Like, I think
Yeah.
back to what they did with Arkham Knight and Arkham City before it, where there were engagements with upwards of 30 people at a time.
Yeah.
I don't
The
feel
more dudes,
They
the
might
better.
have. They might have also taken criticism from the fact that, like, in those games you had 30 dudes waiting in line to hit Batman. Like, you didn't need to have that many there because it just looked ridiculous, you know? Because they were all in a circle and they were just taking their turn to attack.
Well, I mean, if that was a reaction to that criticism, then their correction is an overcorrection.
I mean, that's if
Also-
that's if what you're saying is actually representative of the game, you know?
Yeah,
We don't
I'm
know.
just not entirely sure what to expect at this point, and you also got to consider like this is even though this looks kind of at first glance kind of looks like an Arkham game or an extension of the Arkham universe games. Like this combat is a completely different combat system. It does not.
It absolutely is.
supposedly
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
you're not doing the tap like you're not because that was so much built on reactive gameplay. Like you're timing your like button presses to like dodge and counter attack, right?
Yeah,
This
yeah,
seems more
but-
proactive, more offensive gameplay. You know
But if you
what
think
I'm
about it,
saying?
half the audience for this game is going to be people that played the Arkham games.
Right.
Like, there is
Which
that
it's
expectation.
weird because they're playing into that and they're playing into that on one hand and shying away from it on the other, which may not necessarily be a bad thing. But at the same time, because of that, it's just like I don't know how to feel about it. So
And it would also be a really big miscalculation if the rumors about the Arkham Knight remaster turn out to be true.
Arkham Knight's getting a rematch. I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know
off
if the
topic.
world needs that. Okay, so Brad,
Yes.
what's
Number
your
2.
second?
This is
your second choice.
This is pretty simple because we haven't seen anything of this game, but I'll explain. It's Dragon's Dogma 2. And my suggestion for the developer, what I want to see from them, because I am worried a little bit, is I don't want them to get any crazy ideas. It's been 10 years. They have a new technology, new engine, probably a much nicer budget than what Dragon's Dogma got back in the day. We're all excited for it to come back. When it came to PC, it blew up. We have all these new Dragon's Dogma fans. My plea is to don't fuck it up. Remember,
What?
they did Dragon's Dogma Online,
Is
which
that
was
all?
like some sort of kind of MMO thing, and it didn't do well. There were some neat ideas there, but it's clear that they had a certain vision maybe for what the future of Dragon's Dogma was, and that's not a game, a big single player RPG where it's you and your pawns, and there's some light Dark Soulsy elements where you're sending, there's multiplayer elements between you and the other players playing their games, like sending pawns and stuff, but it's not actually a multiplayer game. And I'm so scared that they're going to try to do something crazy. I don't want to say games as a service, but I said it. Hopefully we're in a world where publishers are getting a little more gun shy when it comes to games as a service, but I really don't want them. This is their number 2. This is their second chance to take the ideas that they had in the first game, polish them, refine them, expand them. This is the bigger, better, badder, sequel or whatever, right? Like this. Don't use this 10 years as an opportunity to get crazy because, like, we're so glad that Dragon's Dogma was back. I would just want it to be not like that, just like the first game, but the first game felt like it was planting the seeds to like something greater, right? This needs to be that game, but bigger and better. And
I have one question. Do
yes,
people really like the pawn system?
yes, they do. I mean,
Okay,
so, but
I stand
the
corrected.
again, it's the idea of the pawn system that's really cool, right? Where you create your own companion. People can bring them into their games, go on quests with them, right? And they'll come back into your world with knowledge of places you haven't even been yet because maybe they went that place in another person's game. There's like a lot of really cool ideas, and they comment on the world and stuff, and they get better at fighting enemies. You know, their AI improves. There's a lot of really cool ideas there, and I don't want them to just. I'm so worried that they're going to be like, this was just sort of a stand in for us doing multiplayer. And now that it's 10 years later, we can do multiplayer games. So we're going to make this a service game where everyone plays with their friends. I don't want it to be like that. You know, Monster Hunter's that, and that's great, right? Dragon's Dogma felt like it had its
So
own identity. It was this big. It felt like a Western RPG developed by a Japanese developer. So it had the crazy combat, it had the bonkers story, it had the stuff that, you know, I like from a Japanese game, but with the, you know, what felt like the freedom of like a Skyrim, right? Expand on that idea. Don't. So my plea for the developers is to like, don't fuck with it too much. You know, give us some new classes. You know, some of the class stuff they introduced in Dragon's Dogma Online was really cool. Give us some new classes, make the world a little bit bigger, a little bit more fun to explore, so you're not taking the same path every time you go through the same mountain range or whatever. Like, like we are living
Maybe
in a
put a
post
mute
Elden
button
Ring
on the
world.
pawns. Yeah.
Well, you know, you had that option in
so
the first game.
yeah, you
Like,
could.
we're living in a post Elden Ring world. I think this game could really, really thrive in a way that like even Capcom can't predict because people love this type of thing. You know, these days they love fantasy RPGs. They love Skyrim. They love Elden Ring. They love big open fantasy games. Just the first one was a little too ugly. You know, it came out at a weird time. It was a little too strange. But I think they can really, really make like the most amazing thing ever, and I just don't fuck it up. That's my plea. Don't fuck it up.
All right, making note of
Nolan.
that. Don't fuck it
Nolan.
up.
What were you
No,
saying,
so I
Nolan?
was gonna. This one was on my list, not as because I knew Brad was gonna talk about it. So in case Brad came up with something else, it was gonna be on there for me. And yeah, I would echo some of what you had just said, Brad. That I think the game was definitely ambitious for when it came out. You know, it came out on the PS3 and the 360. It's not like it was, those systems could only do so much. And so yeah, the world is fairly plain. You know, textures aren't that great, especially because they tried to do something so big. And like you said, you do end up traversing a lot of the same paths, which means your pawns, say a lot of the same things. And so I think having like a bigger world, less linear, but still maintaining those mechanics. Larger enemies that you can grapple onto and climb. Trolls that like they'd love to pick up like women. So that's their thing. So if you have a party of a bunch of dudes, you're less likely that they're going to grab one of your people and run away with them, which was like very inconvenient. But like an interesting concept. So I think those system-driven
That's
mechanics.
a thing, Chris Davis. That's a thing.
My
Clearly,
favorite
someone
thing
never
about
played
Dragon's
Dragon's Dogma.
Dogma is that like a quest or a side quest felt like a journey that you had to prepare for, and when you got stuck out in the wild and it was nighttime and you couldn't see shit, and everyone turned on their lanterns, and then all of a sudden a monster comes out from the darkness. Like no game
You know,
like
on
did that like Dragon's Dogma, and that's what they need to like. They need to
on that
take that,
note,
polish it, and perfect it, and give us that in Dragon's Dogma 2.
on that note, y'all talked about that a lot, and I see where you're coming from. I played the game a lot later than y'all did, so by the time I got around to playing it, uh, you know, the visual tech was not as impressive at the time, and
It
it
was
was dark.
never that.
But like I'm
Yeah.
thinking about now, like some of the games we have now, where it's like you're playing in like HDR and like pitch black is like pitch
Yeah.
fucking black. Like I
Yeah.
want them to harness the lighting technology now to really make the contrast between light and dark even more dramatic than it already was.
Oh god.
Because man,
Yeah.
that could be
It
amazing.
was actually
So-
bad back then. There was like horrible banding in the sky
Yeah,
and the
the
darkness.
banding wasn't great. But yeah, I brought up the story multiple times. But yeah, in that regard, Brad, getting stuck out at night, a pack of wolves surrounds you, but they stay on the edge of the lantern light. So you'll see like some eyes on the edge and they'll jump in, but then they'll jump out and they literally go beyond the light. And so you can't see them, and they keep like kind of circling you and jumping in. So like I said, like the game had a lot of very smart mechanics that made it enjoyable. I think it was just limited by the system. In regards to multiplayer, I don't necessarily say I would hate it. I would not necessarily want it to be like 4 people or something like that. Maybe one person can join you with some limitations. I don't really know. I haven't spent a whole lot of time on it. I think the multiplayer thing was definitely a limitation of the time, which is why they had to be creative and they came up with the Great Pawn system. But I would still potentially like some sort of maybe multiplayer mechanic. I'm not sure.
It's a good idea. I'm so afraid that like once they start dabbling in it, they're already going to go too far. I like multiplayer when it's like narrow and limited in scope, but like in an interesting way. I don't want them to go. It's so easy for them to go multiplayer. Means
like
money,
Monster Hunter.
Transactions and.
I think Monster Hunter handles it very well because like I'm not a huge multiplayer guy, but like I've played almost as much Monster Hunter by myself as I have in a group. And both of those are very viable, very enjoyable experiences, and one does not encroach on the other. You know what I mean? And I think that's finding that balance.
But I understand fears Brad's when it comes to multiplayer. I mean, like, yeah, Monster Hunter has been a good example of multiplayer, but there have also been other examples of bad multiplayer from Capcom. That Capcom has been trying to do PvP multiplayer in Resident Evil for the past 5 years, and each iteration has sucked. So
Yep. I get the concern, but we'll see what happens. All right, moving on to the next one. Nolan, are you next? Yeah, Nolan.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the next one I was going to bring up was Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope.
There was a thing on that today. Did you watch it by chance?
So I like was able to skim through some of it because I knew
on some of that.
Well, yeah, and so that's the thing, exactly, Brad. So that one of the reasons I wanted to make sure I watched that was because I wanted to see if they kind of announced anything like new that we didn't know. So, it is definitely very different from the first game. The first game was very linear and structured in XCOM. You would go from point A to point B, you'd have a battle, an XCOM style battle, then you'd keep going. Whereas this one, it's more of like an open world when you're not in battle. You're from what we've seen so far, you're kind of exploring the areas a little bit more, like interacting.
Doesn't it also look different when you're like telling a character? Because you remember before, it's like XCOM where you can kind of see the line and you're like moving on a grid, kind of, right? But like this, I was watching a little bit of footage with the sound off, and I was like, this looks like he's just still freely moving around.
That's the part that has me worried.
So so that's the thing I was going to bring up, and this is the thing that I'm kind of worried about as well, Brad, is when you're in combat, there's no grid anymore. So you are still turn-based controlling characters. You can still go into cover. You can still target enemies, but it is no longer grid-based. It is completely free form. I don't know if that's going to be good or bad yet. I mean, clearly they spent a lot of time.
You can only move a certain distance before you run out of.
So when you select a character similar to XCOM, you can see the grid and how far you go. In this, it's like a circle around you. Like that is the area in which you were able to move and do things. It seems like maybe that's affording some new kind of unique things in regards to maybe special attacks that now you have a little more free, because it seems like. And this is something that I'm like about. Like that was one of the things that I want to say I didn't like, but characters each have their own unique ability, and only that person can do that thing. That's very like kind of limited to that extent. But yeah, everyone's going to have their own special abilities and weapons and stuff. So they kind of every single one approaches combat differently. Which kind of means you can't potentially like, oh, this particular combat scenario, I want to bring in 3 snipers or something like that. You can't do that here. Like Luigi is your one and only sniper. But so I'm worried that this new system is going to kind of throw things out of whack.
Yeah, you know what it seems like to me? It seems like someone from up top says, this is great and all, but I feel like Mario, you need to be running around a lot and stuff, right? Because, it's Mario. So can we get a little more action going on in these tactical battles? And I feel like they're throwing in some like arcadey stuff, and I'm worried that they're going to lose the thread, because the first game was like a really like taut, like tactical game. It was challenging
It
too.
was challenging for sure.
Yeah, I don't want them to like get too.
Could this also be them trying to kind of distance themselves a little bit from just being called Mario XCOM? You know what I mean?
I think that's only ever helped that game.
Well,
Yeah,
you're
for
right,
sure.
but they made a game that was incredibly successful, and then it instilled a lot of confidence in that team, and like now I'm wondering if that confidence has given them the confidence. Like that confidence is now giving them the confidence they need to branch out and try something that's more original. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Which
There's
may not
there's
ultimately
always
prove
that
to be
like
a good thing, but
yeah, but there's always that like, oh, we got to do a sequel. We don't want it to just be more of the same, so we got to come up with some ideas. And Miyamoto wants him to feel more like Mario in battle.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
One thing I'm also like worried about because they haven't said anything about it yet is an option for permadeath. Would be really nice in this Mario game to have permadeath for your characters.
Permanently injured. They'd have to like make it cute or something, but they could do it.
Is there a particular character you would like to make sure never returns?
Toad?
Definitely Green Mario.
Green Mario. Oh.
What
got dark. All right.
What are the chances of a Waluigi Rabbit? It's got to be a thing, right? That might be
Maybe.
the worst thing that could ever happen, but
Hey, you know what? I expected to really not. I didn't know how I was going to feel about Mario plus Rabbids because Rabbids are like the minions of video games.
yeah.
But you know what? That first game,
It was good.
it was good.
It was great.
Man.
I think
It was
everybody
good.
everybody wanted to do like something, some other Nintendo franchise with rabbits or something,
Yeah. So the announcement of another Mario was like a little disappointing. They're like, I wanted like Zelda or Metroid with rabbits. That'd be cool.
God.
All
I tell
right,
you what, this game, Sparks of Hope, was not on my radar at all.
you still haven't played the first one,
I still haven't. It's still wrapped over on my shelf.
motherfucker.
I haven't gotten around to it. But what has now put it on my radar is the announcement of who's handling the soundtrack. Because they announced
doing
that
the soundtrack.
Okay, it's a trio of Grant Kirkhope, Yoko Shinomura, and Gareth Coker.
Okay,
That's
I know Gareth
incredible.
Coker. That's the only one I got. Gareth
You know
Coker.
Gareth
did,
Coker?
You don't know
Who's the one
Grant
you know?
Kirkhope?
Gareth Coker
Banjo?
did Ori. Grant
Yeah.
Kirkhope did Banjo Kazooie, and Yoko Shinomura has done a ton of stuff. We're talking Street Fighter 2. We're talking Parasite Eve. We're talking a lot of stuff.
Kingdom Hearts.
I'm into it. It sounds like a great combo, and I didn't know that. Okay,
All right.
All
Hard
right,
out of
Crispy.
11.
Sorry. Gruntilda's theme? Iconic.
Iconic.
It pretty much is, yeah.
Crispy, you're up.
Okay, my number 2, because it was so rudely stolen from me.
Sorry.
I'm going to give to the Lord of the Rings Return to Moria.
Oh, is that
I
the?
didn't watch this trailer.
That's the one I watched that trailer the other day. Was that just announced?
Wait,
with
what?
with? I thought you were going to say Gollum for a second.
Oh no, not Gollum. Return to Moria is the one about it's Valheim, but you're dwarves reclaiming the halls of Moria.
Man, I think that sounds pretty
Oh.
cool.
It is pretty. I mean, it's a cool idea, and I originally didn't have it on this list because I'm pretty sold. Like I'm on board to at least try it. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? Within
I
the
do.
mountain, Durin's people woke. What I am curious about, though, the something I would like to see more of, is just exactly like how large and diverse the play space is. You know what I
It
mean?
all takes place in the mines of Moria. It's all
Because it all takes
underground.
place
So
in the
like,
mines of Moria, which I mean is fucking huge, and like the gap of Casa Doom and all that stuff. Like it's a big place. There's a lot going on there, but I want to see like how much verticality plays into it. For instance, how much like
exploration should be
what kind of
perilous.
I mean exploration should be perilous and it should be rewarding and it should be awesome. You know what I mean? But like is it going to be the situation where it's like maybe the deeper into the mines you go, the more powerful threats you face? You know, if you go deep enough, you have to fight a fucking Balrog, which I mean, technically shouldn't even be possible, right? But maybe in this game, you and a
They'll
bunch of
do it. They
dwarves,
have to do that.
you
That
and a
has to
bunch
be
of
like them.
dwarves, you know, you find a bunch of mithril, you make some magic armor, make some magic weapons, and you go down there and you fucking smote that Balrog like Gandalf. Like, that would be cool. That would be awesome. But, you know, is combat even really playing that big of a part in this game? We don't know. The trailer doesn't really have any.
I
I
don't know,
don't
but
think.
you know what? You know what? I'm
But,
hoping. I'm hoping that it ends up feeling, to some extent,
but it's
almost like a
very.
horror game. Like it's a survival. It's
Oh,
a
well, there is a
survival
little bit
game.
of combat. I'm sorry. There are like orcs and stuff in the trailer. There is a little bit of combat. But like, how important is it? Oh, look, there's dwarves standing around drinking together. Like, that's always fun. That's great. I don't
A
know.
little bit of
You know
deeper
what? Even as I
cooking there.
talk about it, I'm like, no, I'm there. I'm in. Like, let's do it. I'm sold. It'll be fun. I think we should do some community nights with
Fuck
this game
yeah!
because first of all, this kind of game's pretty fun. Second of all, like, come on, like dwarves in Moria. That's fucking cool.
All
You
right.
That's
know they're
cool.
gonna put
That's really
elves in
fucking
there too.
yeah. Who fucking cares, man? And like that's the other thing too is like I'm not gonna get bogged down on like lore and canon with this because Lord of the Rings is one of those things that people get like religiously fervent about the canon of Lord of the Rings, and I think it's honestly one of the sort of canons that needs it the least. You know, like I think J.R.R. Tolkien would be pretty dumbfounded by how much people give a shit about like what we consider canon these days. You know what I mean?
So
But
I'm just now reading up on this game. I guess I completely missed it.
Well, it was announced like
they announced it
a couple
during
days ago.
the well, no, they had a trailer for it during the Epic Game show.
I guess I completely missed it, or maybe I didn't even watch the Epic show. I don't know. But yeah, procedurally generated dungeons. Gameplay mechanics around not making noise because you'll draw, creatures from the deep,
Oh,
which will cause combat. Co-op multiplayer for up to 8 players. This
Full of
this
a
sounds
tape.
actually pretty good.
oh, imagine if you
sounds-
can toss each other.
Nobody tosses a dwarf.
Nobody tosses a dwarf.
Oh,
Soon,
man.
master elf, you shall know the hospitality of the dwarves.
In the interest of making sure this stays within the topic here, if you had one concern, what would it be?
I don't fucking know.
That
That
you
it,
can't toss dwarves?
I don't know
You
that
can't-
it's like a specific concern. I think maybe just that it doesn't live up to how interesting and cool the premise is. You know, either that or I'd also be really concerned if we don't actually get to see any dwarf penises, because that feels like a piece
Missed
of lore
opportunity.
that hasn't been explored yet. You know, we've seen how luscious their beards are, but like, what's going on?
It's
So,
just-
Chris Davis, what's your number 2 most anticipated game?
Okay.
I mean, I was gonna say
I
real
like
quick.
what Brad did there. Where he's just subtly switched to like, "What's your most anticipated game?" Like a little bitch. That's not
Hey,
what this
I talked
topic
about
is.
I talked about Dragon's Dogmas.
That's true. You motherfuckers twisted this all wrong.
Listen, I wasn't gonna talk about this game, but
Oh, it's
Nick
my
Yeah, it's
fault.
forced
true.
my
You
hand.
did steal his, Nick.
Nick
Yeah,
forced
this
my
is your
hand.
fault, Nick.
All right, whatever. Chris Davis, what?
Well, hey, looks cool.
Yeah.
cool.
Cool.
Okay, so my number two. I think I need to preface this by saying that I am not sold on this game at all, and it really has to do something to get me to actually be remotely interested in it.
Perfect. This is the spirit of the
first-
question.
But before you get started, tell us a story about the small Eastern European studio.
Yes.
Well, I can if you want, but this developer is actually out in
No.
California.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that later. No, my pick is the reinterpretation of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I
Whoa.
love
Wait,
that
what?
original. Yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. The new one.
That's
they're
coming
No,
out.
remaking.
it's like it's a
Nick.
sequel to the new Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
This is not a reinterpretation of
It's
modern
not-
Call of Duty Modern Warfare. It's literally just a
Except-
sequel to Modern Warfare.
No, it's not a sequel.
Oh.
It is the first Modern Warfare 2019 was a reimagining of the Call of Duty 4.
Dude,
It has the same characters in it. It has the same.
There's no all gillied up level in that game. That is not a remake or a reinterpretation. That is just a different. They rebooted Modern Warfare as a series and used the same characters, and it's a completely different story, completely different missions, and this is a sequel to that.
Yes, it is, and that.
Okay.
I did not like Modern Warfare 2019.
I was not a huge fan either.
You weren't playing Warzones. Dang.
I mean, I'm kind of battle royale out, so by the time Warzone came out, I was kind of like I was done. But I've been bouncing off Call of Duty for a while. I think the last good game they made was Infinite Warfare, because that was so dramatically different from everything else they've been doing. I love the original Modern Warfare trilogy. I think it's a lot of fun. I've probably put 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000 hours into playing multiplayer in that series because it was just so much fun. And I bounced off Modern Warfare 2019 so hard.
The multiplayer or the single player?
All of it. Every
played the
bit
campaign.
of it I bounced off. I hated what they did with the campaign. I did not like any of the tone that they did. The only thing I will give that game is that it was pretty. That's all it
What's
gets out of
pretty?
me. You know, there are
pretty?
just some things in there that that honestly kind of disgust me.
So the question is, what would this game have to do to win you over? Because it sounds like you're pretty off the rails here when it comes to Call of Duty.
This is a 1% chance of me buying it situation. And in order for them to do that, they've got to rekindle somehow some of that magic fun that Modern Warfare 2 in 2009 was able to make. The Spec Ops mode was incredible.
Bring back Spec Ops.
Bring back Spec Ops. That was amazing. Have that campaign that takes you places and is sure it's got tonal issues and it hasn't aged well, but it was visually interesting and fun to play
Tonal
through.
issues.
Yeah, tonal issues.
Russian is tonal issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't even thinking about tonal issues. I was thinking about like the jingoism and the anti-Russian nationalist stuff that was going on in that game. I mean, it was problematic as shit, and it's by comparison even more problematic today. But if they can somehow bring that together, look at the best parts of that original trilogy and say, hey, let's try to find a way to incorporate that into our new vision for Modern Warfare, they might be able to convince me to put some money down. They won't convince me to put some money down at launch because they're going to charge $70 and I'm not going to pay for that game.
I thought you were going to say they couldn't convince you until they fire Bobby Kotick.
Or that.
I mean,
this point,
that's another thing, but that's more of an unrealistic expectation by comparison.
Yeah. That's a whole nother can of worms. But I feel like honestly they were trying to do that exact thing you're describing here with Modern Warfare 1 or whatever the fuck 2019, and it was met with mediocrity, I can't speak, mediocre reception. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith in it either. That mission they showed at I forgot what that was. That State of Play. I don't know the
oil rig
Achilles thing. Yeah, the oil rig thing was a cool spectacle. But like I feel like they're kind of trying to glide on. They're trying to go for. I mean, that is a big reason that Modern Warfare took off because it has so many like big bombastic moments and stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, that's kind of part of it, but like it does go beyond that. And
the oil rig was a really cool level, preceded probably the best level of Modern Warfare 2. And then the ship, is basically the first level from Call of Duty 4. And that one was fucking iconic too.
Yep.
So
I don't know.
they did the right demonstration at the right time of the game of what it could be. But it's still got that a lot of baggage from 2019 that they have to address if they want to get my money.
All right.
Hopefully they
Well.
won't reappropriate war crimes this time, right?
Oh, they'll find a way.
They'll find a way to. Oh man, it's
Hey Nick, what's your number 2 biggest gaming sweat?
what you keep changing the topic here. I'm gonna go with Forspoken.
Oh,
that's a good one.
That comes out this year.
It comes out this year. If you
Maybe.
don't recall, this is the open world fantasy RPG where you play as the young girl.
The
who I think is
isekai? The isekai?
Dude, this is way too early to be asking me about anything specific when it comes to lore. But you play as this young girl from like New York City that gets sucked into like a fantasy dimension, and
An
she's
isekai.
running.
Without
Like
being
Back
hit
to
by a
the
truck.
Future.
Yes, you're killing me, Brad. But this game seems like it shares a lot of DNA with like Final Fantasy 15 in terms of its combat and stuff. It has this like what looks to be like a fun like traversal mechanic, where you're like zipping all over the place and there's a lot of verticality and you're flying through the air and building momentum and stuff, which looks pretty cool. But like beyond that, I'm a little worried that that's taking a little too much inspiration from Final Fantasy 15, which not anywhere near my favorite Final Fantasy game in terms of its combat. This big open world that they've shown, they haven't really focused it at all on like what's happening on the ground in the world. It's just a lot of pretty clips of her flying over these grand canyons, like doing these Spider-Man like traversal shit.
Interiors. There's a lot
Not
of
a lot of
like
interiors, which is fine. But if you're going to spend a lot of time in a big open world, obviously there needs to be stuff to do in it, and they haven't shown like any of that.
I mean, again, I don't want to say we gotta watch what's out there, but there's stuff. There's towns and
I'm definitely going to be trying this game, but perhaps the most this story premise I really like this idea of this like modern day like normal girl that like lives in our world getting sucked into this fantasy world and having to adapt. So she's like running around this like high fantasy world like wearing like sneakers and shit. Like she's like I love that premise, but like what they haven't shown and what I'm really hoping exists, because I think this is the best way to like kind of use this premise to its full potential, is to like kind of do the reverse of that at some point in the game, where you're then going back into like New York City with all these mechanics and stuff that you've learned while running around, and now you're like a superhero running around in New York City. Like I'm hoping it kind of goes both ways, like this idea of these two worlds kind of like blending together in these unique ways.
The Assassin's Creed dream.
Sure. Like that's the kind of thing that I really, really, really hope happens. And obviously, if it does happen, they're probably keeping it close to the vest. But it's also just the kind of thing I think. It's just the kind of thing I think we need to kind of see at least a tease of, to kind of show us that this is not just your average fantasy game. Like, because I think at first glance, a lot of people might be missing kind of that point, right? Like, unless you pay really close attention to like some of the more story heavy trailers they showed first, like you may not even realize that this character you're playing as is from like New York City. It's just this girl. So like I'm hoping they really lean into that premise and it kind of goes both ways. That's really what I want to see at this point. I'm definitely going to try this game. It's a huge question mark for me though, and I don't know. I'm like 85% of the way there on this game. It's also a new IP, which is nice because so much of stuff coming out is sequels and known properties and stuff. So we have this new IP coming from Square. Like, that's exciting, but also new IPs from Square are also very, very, very hit or miss. So I could see this going either way. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Forspoken. I think it's coming out in like September, October. So that's not like too far off either.
Yeah. Like they've been playing this a little bit too close to the chest, in my opinion. They need like blocks of gameplay.
There's more stuff out there than y'all think.
They've shown some combat
you gotta go
stuff.
hunting for it, really.
No, they've shown some pretty extensive like moving around the world and getting into combat, and like the combat without having like a deep dive into the combat is kind of confusing just to watch. But like there are systems in there, there are RPG mechanics, whatnot, but like it's the stuff on the periphery that I'm not entirely sold on yet. The world, the side quests, what are you doing? And I want to know more about that story premise, because that's one of the most unique things about it. I think everything else is going to be kind of informed by how hard they lean on their like foundational story premise and like how they use that character. So all right, I want to take a quick break. We've gone through our number twos. Before we do that, I want to recap what we've listed so far real quick. Brad, you chose Advance Wars with asynchronous multiplayer. Dragon's Dogma 2, you don't want them to get crazy with it. Nolan, Witchbrook with a less rigid class structure. These trying to figure out how to write these down is weird. Mario plus Rabbids. What's that called? What's the subtitle?
Sparks of Hope.
Sparks of Hope, yeah. Crispy went with Starfield and Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. Chris Davis said RoboCop Rogue City?
Rogue City.
Rogue City, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I said Gotham Knights and Forspoken. So when we come back, we'll do our number one picks. Again, these are our top 3 games that we're not quite sold on yet. So if you're watching us live, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, guys. This is again part 2 of the second segment of our second top 3 bonus podcast. We're doing our top 3 games that were not upcoming games that we're not quite sold on yet. So Brad, we all have one choice left. These are our number 1 picks here. Brad, why don't you start us off?
My number 1 pick is Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 or Rebirth. Here's my suggestion for what I want to see to really convince me
more Vincent.
That this is going to be hard, because this is going to be, it's not going to sell me on the game. This is something I want to happen in the game. I think they need to kill Eris. Now stick with me here.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you've played Remake Part 1, it's all leading up to, we're going to do whatever we want now, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point. One of the best, most exciting parts of Remake Part 1 is the meta commentary. Yeah. But the most exciting part of Part 1 is the whole meta commentary on the fandom, right? The ghosts, right? They introduce these ghosts, and any time that the story tries to diverge from the original story of Final Fantasy VII, that's when these ghosts get involved and try to like put the game back on track, right? Of like, no, this is not how things go. It goes like this, and they're always trying to like stop the people from doing the things that are different, right? And it's this whole commentary on the fandom wants it to be like a very faithful remake, while the creators want to like, Nomura want to get out there and fuck with everything, right? But if you go back and you ask a fan of the original Final Fantasy, of the one thing they could change from that original game, the one thing they want to be different is they want to be able to bring back Eris, right? That's the thing. That's the thing that every Final Fantasy fan wanted to do, right? So if you think about it, and you get into like Part 2, Part 3, whenever they're going to do it, probably Part 2, what would the ghost actually want to happen? That would be the one time where the ghost wants to save Eris, right? So if the creators of the game are trying to like diverge from this what the fandom wants, the way you really fuck with people is to fucking kill her, because everything is setting it up to like where it's not going to happen. It's going to be someone else. There's going to be a way to save her. We're going to bring her back. It's a whole new Final Fantasy. Zack's going to fly in and save the day. It's going to get stupid, right?
What if they kill Tifa instead?
No, but that's what everyone's talking about. That's what everybody is talking about. That's what the fandom wants, right?
Nick, then they can't sell those statues then, Nick.
No. It should be the one thing that this new
Good
age
point.
Final Fantasy doesn't fuck with.
All right, Brad.
And that's how you really fuck with the fans. You kill
What
Eris.
if they realize what's going on, that these phantoms are, having to keep things, on track or whatever, and then something prevents, spoiler for a 20-something-year-old game, Sephiroth from killing Eris, right? Something Aerith, whatever.
Eris.
Okay, that's fine. Prevents him from killing her, so Cloud has to do it. He's got to keep the timeline good, so he's got to kill her.
Yeah, I mean, or it doesn't even have to be like eventful. How cool would it be if that scene happens, but then someone stops it, and all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, Final Fantasy VII, it's a whole new world, and then she just takes a stray bullet. It's all like uneventful, and she just drops dead like Children of Men style, right?
It's
She just
Final
gets
Destination, like you can't change it.
Yeah. This is what I want. This is what I want. I want them to not give the fans what they want. And I think
There
that's
we
the
go.
one thing that the fans want. I feel like that's the whole meta commentary of the first game, and the way you keep that going is you let her die and you can't bring her back.
If there's anything I've learned in the past 6 months is never give the fans what they want.
Well, 6
Okay,
months.
never is a bit extreme, but yeah.
I'm excited
fans.
about this game, but I'm obviously very nervous about them going too crazy and fucking it up. But I think there's some
Right.
things that they can do to kind of ground it, to make it a little more, to make it exciting in some of the ways that first game were before it got too stupid. And yeah, kill Eris, let her die, because everyone at
Hashtag
this
let
point
her
is
die.
everyone at this point is expecting it's not going to happen. That's what
Gotcha.
even the most recent trailer suggests that it's not going to happen. I say kill her and let her die, let her stay dead.
Alright.
Let me
You
ask
know,
this
I'm
question.
sold.
Maybe a more interesting plot twist would be, like, part of the plot of the original Final Fantasy was that Cloud supposedly dies. They find him later, and he's infected with Mako, which is totally fucked up his head. What if they just
Chris
decided
Davis
to kill
would bring up
Cloud?
Mass Effect.
You are going against the whole spirit of my point. I know there's all kinds of crazy shit they can and probably will do. My point is to not do it.
They've built up this expectation that they're going to diverge and anything is fair
Exactly.
game now. So the
Exactly.
point is to keep things on track.
At least that thing, the most important thing, the one thing that the fans could change if they wanted. Let her die. And plus, everyone loves her even more now because she's a really great character in that remake.
What if Cloud dove in to save her, but then the sword just goes through both of them?
Shish kebab?
As long as she
and then
dies.
Vincent drops both of them into a fucking pond.
All right, Nolan, what's your number one?
All right, my number one most anticipated game of 2019
What?
is Cult. Who cares, Nick? Cult of the Lamb. I played the demo. I did enjoy it, but I have some concerns. So I have, from what I've seen and what I've heard, there's going to be some kind of base building mechanics to it. So your little like hometown where your cult is based out of, and similar to like Frostpunk, you will have to make decisions. So it's like, oh, do I want to build beds for my cult members, or do I want to start digging graves for the dead people so disease doesn't spread? Like you have to make tough decisions. And I hope that those decisions are actually meaningful. I don't know if they are going to be. In something like Frostpunk, they are very meaningful decisions. Like people will live or die based on the decisions you make, and generally, someone's always going to die. But I really hope that like the home base where you're building is actually I want it to be expansive. I want it to be something special. I think of I don't want to think of like a city builder game so much as like I don't know, like I think of like something like Little King's Story. We have like a little town, and in that game, like everyone's like, "Oh, worshiping their king! Yay, we love you, king! You're the best." Versus this, they're like a cult. So it's kind of they're looking up to you for very different reasons. but I kind of want that. So in Little King's story, they're driven to work for you and help the community and do all this stuff because they respect you, versus this where it's like, oh, they're worshiping this demon and this cult and stuff, and so they're doing it out of like being brainwashed or whatever. But I really do hope that that city kind of town, village, whatever you want to call it, camp uh, building process has some depth to it, um, and has some meaning. So that's kind of
Yeah.
one of my hopes.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I could definitely. So many games that do that kind of thing, where it's not like that's like the not that's like a central mechanic, but it's not the only mechanic of the game. Like so
Correct.
many of
Yeah,
those,
not like a
they
city
can be
builder, but
superficial. They can be
Mhm.
superficial at best. So, yeah, no, I'm totally in agreement with you there.
Is that demo still available?
It is
I
still
remember
available.
I'd started playing it and I had to like do something else, hop into a Monster Hunter game or something. I went back to it and it started over, and there's
restarts
like a really
everything.
slow intro. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. The demo's not very long. You can do it in one sitting, but yeah, it doesn't save progress really, which is unfortunate because I think it's just such a brief demo.
Yeah. I will say this is a good opportunity to plug our last episode from last week. If you haven't listened to it, we talked about over 15, 16 games that we played from the Steam Next Fest, Cult of the Lamb being one of them. So if you want a deeper dive into those and a bunch of other stuff that sounds really cool, go check it out. It's available now. But with that, I think it's Crispy's turn.
For my number one most anticipated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this is one I am highly anticipating, but that I do have legitimate concerns about. Well,
Okay.
maybe. I don't know if they're legitimate.
By the end of
But-
it, he's going to be like, nah, fuck it, I'm sold.
I don't know.
Really cool.
So the game I would like to talk about is Redfall.
Ah, yes.
So
That
this
was on
is
my list
this
potentially.
is the 4-player co-op first person shooter /
Arcane.
open world action RPG
With
slightly by
vampires.
Arcane, where you're fighting vampires, right? The assumption all this time until a few weeks ago was that it was Left 4 Dead with vampires. Now that has shifted more to, as Prince of the Universe in chat said, Borderlands with vampires. Because the 4-player co-op like mission structure is not really the loop of this game. It's an open world game where you're going around this island that's been taken over by vampires and you're doing missions and exploring and all that, but it does have a drop in, drop out co-op component
Yes.
with up to 3 other players, right?
Right.
Now, they showed this off at the Xbox event during the Key 3, the fake
Yeah.
E3 we just had a few weeks ago. And right after that, Arcane confirmed that they're not going to have, like, they're not going to allow story progression through co-op. Only the host can advance story
In their game.
in a co-op session, right? So if somebody comes in to help you, they're just there, kind of helping you push your game along. Now that dismayed a lot of people, I think, because it went against the expectation of what this game is, and it also, but I want to say that I do not think in and of itself that is a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. If you think about it, like, that's the way fucking Elden Ring works. That's the way like any of those games work, where it's like you are going into someone else's game to help them push the story forward, right? The thing that makes that rewarding and entertaining in a game like Elden Ring, though, is that there's a reward for doing so. Like, if you go in and do it, you get paid with runes, which are invaluable because that's everything in that game, and you also get a rune arc, which is also a really helpful item to have because it's a very potent power up for most characters, right? So you have a reason to do it. And it also, I mean, part of it for that game too is that it kind of restricts, like, it kind of restricts the structure of that online co-op interaction because you can only like go through a certain area with that person, and then once you finish that area, it kicks them out, or you can only fight a certain boss with that person. Once you fight the boss, kicks them out, that kind of thing, right? They haven't really
Right.
said how that's going to work in Redfall, to my knowledge. I didn't find anything
No,
about
I
that.
don't think they've gone into great
It
detail about
really
it.
seemed more like all they were really saying is like, oh, it's a drop in, drop out, which does sound a lot like Borderlands. And my problem with Borderlands is that it didn't feel as rewarding to spend a bunch of time playing in my friend's game,
Yeah.
because there wasn't much thought put into like, well, what is the economy of this game? What are the individual goals that a player is trying to achieve in any particular like session of gameplay? And
And Borderlands, it's just it's like, what are the guns I'm gonna get? 'Cause
right, and
that's
it's like what am I gonna get out of this time besides just having fun with my friend, which is great. But at the end of the day, if I play through the entire campaign with my buddy and at the end of it he gets credit for it and I'm like on my console, I still have to play through the whole fucking campaign, and I didn't even get like meaningful progression of my character or like new guns or new anything like that. Like what am I doing here?
right. Right.
Like, that's what I'm concerned about, because this does look like, I mean, the dream, the kind of like pie in the sky view of this game is it's an open world arcade game that you can co-op. Open world arcade
Yeah.
games are fucking cool. Like, fucking Dishonored, Prey, the most recent one, the loop-de-loop.
Deathloop. Loop-de-loop.
Loop-de-loop. I mean, they're cool games and they're fun, and I imagine it would be really fun to explore a world like this with all the different unique traversal mechanics and like the fun
Dynamic
combat
gameplay.
dynamic gameplay that Arcane is really good at. Like, yes, this seems like this could be a fucking knockout if you know
They can
like the
properly
only other thing,
incentivize the
the only other
co-op.
thing I can say is like, we'll make it super easy to like get people in, get people out, and like, you know what I mean? Like make it.
For sure.
I don't know. Give me something
I will
here
say
to
that
like
you
make the
have
co-op
kind
fun,
of
because otherwise that's the difference between me playing this game for 10 15 hours and then being like, okay, that was kind of cool, and then like forgetting about it by the time end of the year rolls around and being like, oh yeah, I did play that was maybe like an 8, kind of thing. Or the other option being like, this is the kind of game I play for hundreds of hours because all my friends are playing it, because this is like a really fun, rewarding way to like hang out and play games.
For sure, for sure. I will say this: it's kind of a. On one hand, I think I have a bit more faith in Arcane as a studio who would make smart decisions, just on a game development, from a game development standpoint.
Sure.
But at the same time, Arcane thus far doesn't have a ton of experience, or at least has not done a ton with multiplayer stuff specifically. And obviously, Gearbox has been doing multiplayer stuff for a lot longer. So I kind of not sure where I fall on it, but I agree with
Nick,
everything you
lest you
said,
forget
because this has a
that
lot of potential.
the multiplayer versus mode in Dark Messiah.
I didn't touch that when I played
Also,
that.
Prey
recently.
did have a multiplayer mode.
That's why I said.
I mean, the
I
whole
didn't
point
say
of the
they've never
crossing
done
back in the day
multiplayer.
was to be a unique multiplayer.
I didn't
game.
say they've never done multiplayer. I chose my words very carefully because I know they've done
The
multiplayer
loop-de-loop
stuff.
game had invasions.
Yeah, but
That's
again,
true.
it's
That's
not
true.
like what we're talking about here, right?
And this is also the
Like,
studio.
we're talking about a very intuitive game where people who are playing solo and people who are playing co-op can kind of like transition into each other and out again in a very natural way, in a way that is rewarding for both parties, even if only one party gets to progress the story, right?
And it's
That's all I'm
also
talking about. And Arcane really hasn't done that before. But to me, like, to my personal reputation for Arcane, like, they are a studio. When they put out a new game, there is significant thought and significant work put into it to
right.
to do something different that they didn't do before, to
Yeah.
take what was good about stuff they have done and add something new and ambitious. And yeah, sometimes they overshoot that a lot. Sometimes their eyes are way bigger than their stomach and it doesn't quite hit the way that you can tell they want it to. But whatever, man. Like I hope
Take
they're
risks.
I hope that they are using that kind of mentality with the idea of a 4-player co-op / single player experience. I hope this isn't just like we're making it co-op because someone told us that would sell more copies.
Yeah. No, it also uh Arcane is made up of several studios now, and you got to remember, I was like, this is the Arcane Austin team. This is actually being made right here in Austin, where we live and record from. And then I remembered that Arcane Austin is the studio that did Prey, which, if you
And that
remember,
was
is an
sick.
amazing game that we
Yeah.
all really loved. So I have a lot of faith in Arcane just as a company, and especially I think Arcane in Austin because they did such a great job with Prey.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm super excited. This is one of my honorable mentions as well.
Do you imagine that they will add Deathloop's invasion mechanic in there as well?
Maybe
Probably.
like where you get to invade as a vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be cool if they added a mode
Yeah.
post launch. I mean, who knows, right? Like we're just
Anything could
talking
happen.
out of our ass here, but like, yeah, if they had a mode later where it's like, oh, you can play as vampires and invade people, like, yeah,
I
that'd
mean,
be fucking
say what you will about Deathloop, that mechanic worked pretty well.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
like I would imagine that
Deathloop
since
is-
these games were developed fairly simultaneously, that yeah, there would be some room for overlap and inserting that.
Sure. In Deathloop, I was honestly what I consider to be Arcane's weakest game, but even saying that sounds crazy because I don't think
still a
it's
good
really
game.
a weak game. It's still an
Yeah.
amazing game. But yeah. All right. On
Chris
that
Davis,
note,
what's
Chris
your
Davis,
number one most anticipated vampire game? Go.
Well, mine. I mean, it might eventually
don't
become a
let him-
vampire game.
Don't let him throw a wrench in your thing.
I have to realistically make that statement because that's not inaccurate theoretically speaking.
Okay.
My game that I am most on the fence about at this point is Payday 3. Now, Nick, you thought I was going to say Final Fantasy
vampire
6.
game.
Huh?
No, I just didn't know how. I was waiting for this vampire thing to make sense, but what? Continue.
So here's the thing about Payday 2 is that it's still getting support, and they've done some batshit crazy stuff with Payday 2 support. Some heists that are just insane. The Halloween heists that they do feature like that kind of weird in Payday universe. Like vampires are not out of the question when it comes to these games, basically.
Okay.
So Payday 3, Grant, I love Payday 2. I put over 500 hours into playing that. I know that's only half of what Brad put into Slay the Spire, but that's a whole other conversation. I love Payday 2. But I had to stop after a while because I could not handle the constant pace of DLC coming out that you had to pay for. And I couldn't keep track of the overall meta of what was going on because there is an overarching narrative in Payday 2 between all the content that happens. It's some absolutely insane shit. The final, I guess, part of the story is you raiding the White House. It's crazy stuff. But
I had no idea.
yeah, so Overkill, they went for Payday 2, which was a fantastic game, and then they put out a stinker. They put out their Walking Dead game, which was delayed several years, turned out like crap, and was immediately abandoned by the owner of the IP. I forget what they're called.
Are you talking about Skybound?
Skybound, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot buy The Walking Dead theoretically anymore. It has been stripped.
I forgot what that game was. I forgot what that game was even called, to be honest. But yeah, I remember it being a mess.
It was called Overkill's The Walking Dead.
Oh, that's
Oh,
a dumb
yeah.
name.
I mean, it was a good idea in theory, but it was a terrible execution.
Yeah.
And that's the Overkill that we have developing Payday 3 at this point. And that's scary to me.
Yeah.
Now
Is there a lot of is there any overlap of that team that worked on Payday 2 as well, or was that a whole new team that worked on The Walking Dead? I don't know.
So there has to be some leftover Overkill personnel, but a lot of the senior staff have left since then. A good number
One
of
of
them
those.
went to form their own studio, including Simon Vickland. They made a game called GTFO. Yeah, you
Oh,
might still
yes,
have the
that
hats
game.
that I gave you.
Oh yeah, I remember all the hats we got
Yeah.
from E3. Yeah.
Which is a very good game, but it's also extremely hard.
Right.
But that's the game they
Also
wanted to make.
unrelated because they're not making Payday.
Yeah.
3.
So this is modern Overkill that made their Walking Dead game, which bombed, and now they're falling back on what they had the most experience with, which is Payday. Now they have good things going about it. The game is supposed to be set in New York this time. They've already detailed it's the same cast of characters. It's going to be about heists. It's expected to use the same kind of character building mechanics and custom loadouts and stuff like that Payday 2 was known for. There's even some hints that maybe it might be some kind of open world thing. Those also have good things, but those are things that they try to do in the previous game that they made, and it again bombed. So that makes me worried. The one thing I think that would really put it more back on my radar is if they nailed down an actual campaign storyline. Because Overkill's work on Payday 2, again, it was all disconnected story events, all these heists that have nothing to do with each other other than like you're being sent on a mission. A couple of the packs had overarching narratives to them, like with Giancarlo Esposito's Dentist and Hoxton, Houston, things like that. But
Did you just call him Giancarlo?
Giancarlo Esposito. Forza, whatever.
I don't know how to pronounce it, so
Yeah. Anyway.
I say it wrong every time.
Anyway. So they had those elements, but they never fleshed them out. The entire focus of Payday 2 was that heist-to-heist experience of just playing those levels over and over and over again just for the gameplay experience. There was never a real focus on story. There is the potential for that in this game. So if they develop, I'm not asking for a single-player campaign or even a full co-op campaign. I'm asking for a cohesive storyline with
focus. You're asking for focus.
focus and maybe cinematics and storytelling happening. Things that I don't have to go to marketing materials for story. Because that's what you have to do with Payday 2.
Unfortunately, the answer to that question really you're not going to get until it's out. You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of answer that comes to you over time.
You want to know the lore implications of robbing Dracula's castle on Halloween or whatever the fuck?
Wait, was that a mission? Was that
no,
a mission?
No, it's not. But I would
made it sound.
Let me tell you how fucking weird Payday
it's
is.
Not out of the question.
Yeah, the final mission of the game, you invade the White House, and as part of the secret in a heist, and in to get the secret ending, you have to find a hidden vault underneath the White House, which had
still the Declaration of Independence.
Better, okay?
Wait, that's not where they keep the Declaration. Okay,
that's not. That's the National Archives. That's a whole other conversation. No. So part of the plot line leading up to this was that your main person that was dispatching you on missions, his name is Bane, and he sent you out on missions to heist. Well, evidently, he was infected with a government virus. So you go into the basement of the White House to a secret vault, and you find an ancient alien machine called the Ark of the Watcher. And Bane uses that to switch bodies with the president. It's weird shit.
I had no idea that Payday was this ridiculous and stupid.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Embrace it.
But Nick, what's your number one stupidest game?
Yeah.
Hey, it's
Also,
my
just
choice
to
could go either way.
make it clear as to how much more batshit this thing is, every single piece of DLC that you do in, including the licensed content, is canon. So, like Reservoir Dogs and John Wick and Shadow Warrior 2 are canon. Tony Montana from Scarface is canon in Payday.
That's weird.
But you
So,
just
That's
got through
weird.
telling us how there's no cohesive story. So why are you suggesting that they're
It sounds like
canon?
you really want them to rein it in a bit.
I want them to rein in. I want them to have a story I can understand from A to Z that I don't have to read marketing materials to understand it.
No. You know what you sound like? You sound like the kind of person who wants to make Hitman about a story instead of a bunch of crazy levels.
And you know what? I like the way they did the trilogy with that story.
Oh.
You know, you know what? I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna let Chris Davis be.
I want to rob Dracula.
Well, I want to rob Dracula too. That's great.
Oh
Why
my god!
not? Let's do it.
You know what? They really should just make a mission where you have to steal the Declaration of Independence from the National Archive, and don't like make any other reference to National Treasure, anything. Just like the sole objective is we're gonna steal the Declaration of Independence, and that's it. Like that'd be
There's a
cool.
heist
Alright.
in the game to where you are doing something very similar to that. You're not stealing the
Okay.
Declaration, but you're stealing something as valuable
along the same
theoretically.
lines. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. All right. Well, I hope you get your
God, I hope
weird
so,
payday.
man.
Okay. All right. My number one choice is actually gonna be Atomic Heart. This is that Russian-developed Bioshock clone. I don't want to call it clone, but it looks like
Inspired.
this is inspired. Bioshock inspired, and that when you get down to it, that is kind of where most of my concern lies, because this game has looked pretty good from the get-go, and the more and more they show of it, the more I'm like, this looks a little too good to be true, especially coming from a smaller studio. Um, and I'm absolutely in love with like this world, like the world they've kind of created, and it has this like these robotic enemies that kind of populate the world, and you have these psionic powers. It just feels it feels very like Bioshock. But I'm hoping that one first of all, I'm already kind of sold in the sense that like there's no world in which I'm not going to play this game. It's so up my alley that like I'm gonna try it no matter what. But I'm also of the opinion. I'm also kind of the mind of that. This game is probably going to be jank. I'm guessing if it especially if it's as like open and expansive as like they're trying to make it sound, it's probably going to come at a cost, and that is probably going to be it's probably gonna be maybe a bit of a technical mess. I'm not
It's
sure.
going to be closer to We Happy Few than Bioshock.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's where I'm concerned. But I've seen examples recently of games that kind of are on a smaller scope that are kind of doing the same thing. And in fact, there was a game that I played last year as an indie game, and of course, I'm gonna forget what it was called. Someone in chat probably knows what I'm talking about. It's a small indie game where it's kind of Bioshocky, kind of Half-Lifey, but you're fighting robotic enemies. I played it on the stream. Somebody in chat remind me what it was called. But like I've seen games like this work on a smaller scale.
Destria?
Industria, thank you. Yes, I played all the way through Industria. That's like a quick, like 3 to 4 hour game, but it was very atmospheric. It kind of nailed that like robotic, like the enemy. It reminded me of oh my god, what's the game we always talk
Bioshock.
about? No, the robot game where you shoot them and like nuts and bolts go flying off them, and like it killing robots was like super
Ratchet
satisfying.
and Clank?
Bion-
Ratchet and
No.
Clank?
No.
That
Come on, guys, don't fail me
was
now.
Capcom game.
Binary Domain.
There you go. Yeah.
It kind of captured that like really satisfying like crunchy combat with the Binary Domain, because killing robots in that game is really great. I'm hoping that this game delivers that on a bigger scale, but like the one thing I want this game to do is separate itself from Bioshock. I want it to lean into more like the RPG mechanics. I want you to, instead of like just kind of going through this linear story and collecting these psionic powers and kind of following this like preset trajectory, I want you to like be making choices about which powers you're unlocking. I want there to be skill trees, and I want those skills that you unlock to change the way you interact with the world. And I say that because I think this world they've created looks amazing, and the combat looks fun as hell, and it looks like it's got that super crunchy, satisfying gunplay. But man, all of this comes with a bit of just skepticism because it is a studio that I think this is their first project. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It just looks like they might be biting off more than they could chew. But if there's one game that I want to deliver on its promise this year, or yeah, I think it's coming out this year still, it's this game. But in order to deliver, I think they really need to focus on setting themselves apart from the game that obviously inspired it, because it is very obvious that this is heavily inspired by BioShock or System Shock. So I'm hoping there's more depth to it than just running around shooting things and using psi powers. But I don't know. I don't have a ton of faith that's what we're gonna get, and I'm really nervous about it. But man, Atomic Heart looks dope. If you have not heard of it, go watch the trailer. It looks awesome. I hope it delivers. And anyways, I think that's it for our list. Does anybody have any honorable mentions they want to throw out there?
Before we end, can you tell us what the topic was one more time?
Top 3 games that we're not quite sold on yet.
I got some honorable mentions. Xenoblade 3, we've seen a lot of it. I really want to see the world. I've talked about that before. Show me the world. Show me that it's one connected, seamless map like Xenoblade Chronicles X. I want that so bad. Monster Hunter World 2, it's a little bit too early to be throwing out suggestions, but please bring back.
Wait, that's not even a game that exists yet. Like, that hasn't even been
announced.
Well,
it does. I mean, it does based on the Capcom hack, obviously. Sure. They are working on it. Not World 2. Sorry, Monster Hunter 6th Gen, whatever the follow-up to World is. Bring back underwater combat, please. It was such a cool
there was underwater
part of
combat in that game?
In Monster Hunter Tri, there was. And then they got rid of it because too many people bitched about how it controlled underwater. But, the potential's there, Now they have a chance to make it really good. So excited. Tactics Ogre Remastered is another... don't fuck with it. It's mostly don't fuck with the art style, please, is my suggestion, because I'm afraid they're going to do that, and with Final Fantasy Tactics. But that's it, I guess.
Anybody else want to throw some out there?
I've got
Final Fantasy 16. Show me the quiet moments, please.
Yeah,
begging you.
Final Fantasy 16 was on my honorable mention too. I think they've been very controlling on what they've showed of it so far. Very, very selective. And I want to know what the actual loop and what an actual combat encounter looks like in this game.
I want to know what that game looks like when you're not in combat. That's more than anything. I want to know what that game is like outside of combat.
They did talk about the game some more and the summons and stuff. Also, they confirmed that it's not open world.
Yeah. But like big open environments, which, chain together, which is honestly what Final Fantasy has kind of been for years now.
Yeah,
it's been a long time since Final Fantasy has been had an open world overworld.
Also, I would like to mention Wolong Fallen Dynasty, the new game from Team Ninja.
We don't know a ton about that yet, though. It's kind of hard to.
It's the same team that made Nioh. They're doing Romance of the Three Kingdoms Nioh, so we know what we're gonna get. It's just gonna be.
Is your suggestion that it's not like Nioh?
It's gonna be a different setting, and maybe different looking monsters, but the same basic game.
Sure.
Nick, you motherfucker! Team Ninja has made a lot of bad games. The best thing they could do would be to make it like one of their few good ones.
I thought Chris Davis was saying he thinks it shouldn't be like Nioh. I totally think it should be like Nioh.
I'm fine with it being like Nioh. I just hope it's more user friendly. Because that granted, I did have a bad experience trying that game out the first time, which really made me bounce off it. But I really want to try again.
You should. It's amazing. And I still need to play Nioh 2. Shit. Nolan, any honorable mentions for you?
Yeah. So I was gonna say Saints Row.
I almost put this on my list.
we've seen a lot, and I don't want to say almost too much, but my fear is, and I don't think this is going to come true. I think they're going to have too much in it. I think Saints Row, especially the more recent ones, have just suffered from an abundance of shit. And while a lot of it is fun and good, I think it's just like it's overwhelming playing those games.
Yeah.
And my hope is, to my knowledge, I think they are scaling back the zaniness a bit.
Really? Because
I
the
think
last two trailers they've shown have been like they've pivoted, did a
It's just proof
180
that
on
you
that.
haven't played Saints Row 4, Nick.
No. I mean, the first time we saw the Saints Row reboot, it was like way more grounded, and then the last two trailers we've seen have been just fucking batshit
so.
insane.
So yeah, I'm gonna agree with Brad. I think each game has gotten more insane, and I think this is a small step back. It's not a giant leap backwards. I think
More
it is
like the Saints Row
slightly.
the third, yeah.
Yes, I guess I'm saying on par with 3, not 4. Which I think is kind of positive. Don't get me wrong. I did enjoy 4 when it came out, but I think I was kind of a different place. And I loved that, from the serious GTA to the super zany Saints Row.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping while they keep the fun stuff in there, it's just a little more grounded. I know they're still gonna have their wacky weapons and stuff like that, and those are fun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm worried about it.
Crispy's laughing. I'm wondering if he's laughing. Is he thinking about Saints Row?
Yeah. This was actually going to be an honorable mention for me too, but I don't. Yeah, but like I can't articulate what I want from a new Saints Row game. I don't
I
know.
They
think,
need a lovable cast of characters
For
that
sure.
are fun to be around,
Yeah.
and they have good. I mean, I think that's when Saints Row started to be really good, is when you really started to like became endeared to like the cast and their zaniness. They're singing songs with you in the car and they're goofing around. I mean, honestly, that's why people were so sad that they changed the cast completely. I think is because they
Mhm.
miss those characters.
Also, maybe take a look at bringing back some of those, not necessarily iconic, but really fucking good, modes that they had from the original games. Like, I will never not. I will never forget how much fun I had in Saints Row 2 with the Septic Avenger. Those missions,
Mm.
probably my favorite of the generation, honestly.
all
You know,
right. I don't know.
do that
That'll
some
be
stuff.
it'll
And
be interesting to see
Singularity
how that
was
game turns
actually
out.
really good.
What? Fuck off. Um,
No,
Nolan,
I
do you
mean
have
he's
any
right.
anything else?
It's funny.
That's good enough. That's basically
I want
all
to
I had.
quickly mention, or Crispy first. Do you have any other than Saints Row you wanted to
No,
mention?
not really. Except for Batman or fucking Gotham Knights.
Well, we covered it. I got you.
Nice.
I got you,
Nice.
fam.
My
All right.
suggestion for them is
Concern.
bring back Batman. What the
Bring
fuck?
back Batman.
That's the
Where's
secret twist at
Batman?
the end.
I will
Batman
say
was
though,
never
I,
dead.
I did watch that Robin trailer and that looked pretty good. That was kind of
Yeah,
cool.
definitely. I
wasn't
think
good.
that did the best job of kind of like
That was
selling me
kinda
on the
good.
combat.
I liked
Um,
his like League of Assassins Robin costume. That was pretty cool.
yeah. Couple honorable mentions for me. Slitterhead.
Yeah.
Only reason I didn't include this is because I don't think we know enough about this yet. Although I was watching a developer interview, they've gone into some detail about it, and it's just the premise is interesting and it looks crazy. They're saying some things that don't necessarily get me excited. Like they don't really consider it a horror game, and it's more of an action game. And it's like that's not necessarily what I want from the creator of Silent Hill. It does have Akira Yamaoka coming back to do the music, so there's certain elements, touchstones that are there that get me excited. But I can't help but feel like this might be like the Ghostwire Tokyo of to Silent Hill almost, because it's just like he's going over, he's working on something that's more of an action game, and I just don't know if it's gonna have that. I don't know what that I look for in Silent Hill. Also, shout out to Bayonetta 3. Of course, I'm going to play Bayonetta 3. Excited about it, but man, that first trailer did not do it for me. And I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. It looked dull. So, I don't know. I'm hoping when we see that game finally pop up again, it does a lot more to sell me on it. And I hope it looks more colorful and vibrant, because that first trailer looked like it was drained of all personality that I think Bayonetta 1 and 2 was full of. And also Hellblade 2. They've shown this game several times. Of course, I'm excited for Hellblade because I like the first one a lot, but like, I want them to show me how this game is different and maybe how it's bigger in scope. Obviously, it's going to have a bigger budget. They're owned by Microsoft now. Where is that money going? Show me how Hellblade 2 is going to be a bigger experience, a more grand experience than Hellblade 1, because Hellblade 1 was very much kind of like an smaller indie project, and now they have this huge publisher behind them and all this money. I want to see what they're doing with it. I hope it's obvious when we see that game again. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions. So I think that wraps it up to this for tonight, guys. If you're listening at home, reminder: we're going to try and do these once a month. So if you like these shows, let us know in the comments. So share some of your choices with us. We'd love to hear from you. You can also hit us up in Discord. If you're a supporter on Patreon or Twitch, you can of course throw us your suggestions for a future topic, and we'll and if we pick yours, we will of course give you a shout out on that episode. So you can join us in Discord at discord.gg/4player. There's a supporters channel set up if you want to share your ideas. But yeah, we'll be back next week with a regular show to talk about more video games. So in the meantime, y'all be good to each other, be safe, play video games, and we'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
That motherfucker like a hard out at 11.
Still 10:59. Okay, now it's 11.